Hi guys, Grab Wine Time London here at the wonderful £67 Mile with Jean-Frédéric Hugel from Alsace to talk about his story, the family story, an amazing family story, and Alsace.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's
My great pleasure.
Great to have you in person.
That's fantastic. Good opportunity, and what a fantastic place to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to the team at 67 for letting us do it here, and everyone that's got involved and helped us along the way. You know who you are. Let's start with you, Jean-Frédéric. Your story, before we talk about the family history, your journey into wine.
My journey into wine. Well, obviously, being born in a wine family, I would say there was wine on the table, on the family table, more often than in most families, even French families. So the story with wine, basically, it's the story that I would say most people would have with wine, which is the fact that, well, it's a fantastic product that ends up growing on you at some point. And it just happens so that in my family it tends to happen a little bit earlier than in most. I generally tell people I went from water to wine. So
yes, and that's an amazing story, because obviously at the start you were interested in wine, it was there, I'm sure. But
age of 10, 12, wine is a very abstract concept. 16, much less, I must say. But 10, 12, my goal in life, I love everything that crawls and swims in waters. So I wanted to be a marine biologist. That was the main first idea, and then started to grow an interest for wine. And around 16, 17, working at the winery, like any good son of a producer. You start to touch a little bit of how fantastic a product we're playing with.
Absolutely. So you get to 16 and you start to help out in the vineyard.
In the vineyards, in the tasting room. I worked the weekends at the tasting room during pretty much all of my education, and considering it as a career at some point. My major is more in sales, and I did business school, and wine was more home tuition, I would say, which isn't bad.
No.
I recommend for everyone to learn that way. It's the best way to learn about wine is actually to have
to feel it and be there and
pop corks and taste the wines, and that's what I got to do, and live around the vineyards and crawl around the cellar from a very young age.
Amazing. So let's go back to the history, because I love there's a picture of the top of the label and the cork, and 1639.
Yes.
That's a lot of history.
That is a lot of history, especially in a region like ours,
Yeah.
which is a very disputed region.
Yeah.
We love to think that it's for the quality of the wines, but we've more or less been the prize for the winner of every war between France and Germany.
Yep.
And this for quite a few centuries. So we've been fortunate enough to live in a fabulous place that was extremely wanted, and fortunate enough to be in an area that has very often been defined by wars.
Absolutely.
Which is an unfortunate thing, because that's not how we like to be presented or remembered, obviously. But it's true that it's shaped a lot of the Alsace identity.
Totally, and that history. So obviously, 1639. You're the
13th generation.
13th generation.
14th generation is in training.
In training, yes, doing what you did many moons ago.
Well, at two and a half, we're in the process of the beginning of the stuff.
Beginning of the train. So, from that process and having that family history, because obviously you're on the sales side and having to talk about that story, that must be incredible.
It's a great
or daunting as well.
It's well, it's always a duality in a way that you're from a legacy, a heritage, which means that you are a bit in a mold, whether you want it or not. You can't start over from scratch and say, okay, we're doing brand new from now on. Throw the baby with the bathwater, and that's it. We're just starting fresh. So you don't have that opportunity to start fresh, but you have an amazing tool that has been designed already for you, basically, which is more or less the way we've been seeing things in the family for generations. My great grandfather had already paid the inheritance tax over 2 generations, just to make sure that the legacy would continue.
Amazing.
So more or less, each generation's objective is to basically improve the situation of the company and hand it to the next generation.
Incredible, and that was going to be one of my questions for later. But even then, your great grandfather was looking to the future.
Of course.
How can we help the future generation?
I'll give you another example of how forward thinking and how much in my family generations thought over multiple generations. It's that we are one of the very few houses where people kept a library. In Alsace, few people kept any library because a wine sold was a good wine. The best wine was the one that was sold out.
Yeah.
So they would sell literally out, and in my family we're very fortunate that the best wines of the best vintages have been kept, and then we have a library record of absolutely top wines from the past 150 years.
Wow.
Over 150
Wow. Well,
years.
next time I'm interviewing him in the cellar, so I get to try some of these wines. Let's talk about one of the wines first, and then we'll dive into more of the story. So should we start with Riesling?
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
We're going to try actually two of the most extreme wines, two of the most different wines that we produce. Our classic Riesling and our Gewürztraminer Vendange Tardif. So really the two extremes, but the best extremes. So that's the classic Riesling
2022.
Great.
So talk to me about a classic Riesling for you and the family. What should we be getting, and what does it mean, and what should it be?
The most important I feel on Riesling, this is a cool climate grape.
Yeah.
It's a cool climate grape that on top of that, even for cool climate grapes, is high acid.
Yeah.
It high structure. And Riesling by default, and especially Alsace Riesling, because this is a dry wine, by default Alsace Rieslings are dry. This is a wine that should have structure.
Yeah.
Structure is probably the most important element in Riesling, in the way that it brings freshness, it brings the backbone of the wine, it keeps the focus, and it brings length, and it's very, very important.
And you said structure, and that's what it is. The acidity is perfectly balanced.
Thank you.
It drives the wine forward, and then you feel the other textures and weights and the fruit sort of hang on to this beautiful train track of acidity.
I'm going to quote my uncle on this is a food wine. Let's be clear.
Totally.
This is a food wine. This is by default thought of as a wine to go with a dish. When my uncle describes, and he's made that wine, so you can't get better opinion on this wine. He always says that the best food wine, the best food Riesling, grab the back of your tongue.
Totally,
should be have a little bit of a grape that is not unenjoyable, I must say, but just on the edge of wow, that's
do you know what it is for me? And it reminds me of, when you feel a storm coming.
Yes.
There's an electricity in the air.
Absolutely.
That's what it feels like. And you're like, oh, is it going to rain? Is it not?
And so when you have it with food, it becomes perfect.
Yes.
Keep in mind that acidity is a flavor enhancer. It's very, very important.
You're a foodie as well, I can tell. So
just a touch, just a touch.
But it feels like there's an electricity on the back palate, and you are right. With food though, it would just round it off beautifully. It is a wonderful drink, glass of wine on its own. But I think with food, it would just
makes it take a completely different dimension. That's the purpose of a pairing. We'll make the food better, and the food will make the wine better.
Obviously, Alsace is known for Riesling,
yes,
and there's some amazing Rieslings from the region itself. Why do you think that is?
First of all, we're lucky to be in an area that historically has been growing Riesling. So we're in the Rhine Valley, which is the birthplace of Riesling. It's now considered an international grape. It's been adopted in many countries, including parts of the New World. So we're very lucky to share that grape with other countries that actually made it theirs and make pretty fantastic wines. But how to say, when it comes to the old world, where it's the most unique in a way that we are able to have that structure, to have that leanness, to have that freshness, but at the same time, texture, roundness, power and opulence. You have some development on the palate. It is a falls warm climate. Alsace is a falls warm climate. The summers are incredibly sunny, incredibly hot. The nights are still cold, and that allows us to grow Rieslings that we can produce dry because the acidity is just low enough to be able to make dry wines, but still with incredible structure that would carry the wine through.
Absolutely fantastic. Drinking beautifully now.
Thank you.
These can age as well, though.
Yes, absolutely. There's on any of our wines, and typically in Alsace you would have 10 years of aging potential on any bottle.
Yeah, wow. That's good to know, because some regions
That's
of
a
the
good
world,
start.
that is a fantastic start. I want to talk to you also about why, you said why it's special, but also, is it the soils as well? Is it the microclimate?
There's an element, if you're first approaching Alsace,
Yeah.
it's probably the easiest region to approach. We put the wine, the grape variety on the wine label.
Yes.
It's very easy to approach
Totally.
at first.
Yes.
The
For a
wines-
French wine region.
For a French wine region,
Yes, yeah.
all things considered,
Yes.
for a French wine region. But at the same time, if you're willing to go in depth,
Yes.
you can go in incredible complexity. That's why very often people tell me Alsace is complicated. Alsace is not complicated, it's complex. Complex has a very different meaning. Complex,
Yes.
you take it wherever you want.
Yes.
You acquire as much as you want. You don't
Yes.
need to fully
No.
know every single vineyard spots of Alsace to understand the region. Alsace has at the same time a semi-continental climate, which is
Yeah.
quite unique in France,
Yeah,
because
totally.
when it comes to France, we're the furthest region from any sea or oceans,
Yes.
which obviously starts with an incredible difference. The furthest northern wine region of France, Champagne accepted.
Yeah.
They're not trying to make ripe grapes, so we're going to
No,
put them
no.
on the side.
Yeah, yeah.
They can, but they don't want to. Okay, that's okay. And at the same time, we are a region, so semi-continental, which means rough winters, warm summers,
Yep.
cold nights, warm days, low humidity, rainfalls that are quite limited, which actually allow us just the right amount to dry farm,
Yeah.
but no excess of water, which might be a challenge.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, probably the most diverse geology in the world of wine. In Rivière alone, we have 10 different soil types to play with.
That's crazy.
We're in the Rivière is really in the heart of the complexity of geology.
And all these elements you just spoke about, it sounds like a perfect place to.
It's a fantastic place to be growing, especially white grapes. But
Yes.
well, climate change is also going in that way, where reds are actually
Now-
becoming more and more of a.
Have you read my script? That was going to be my next question before we tried the Gewürztraminer. Because climate change is having an effect around the world.
Absolutely.
And you're seeing that also in Alsace?
Also in Alsace, especially I would say in Alsace, the fact that it's quite continental, we don't have the buffering effect of
No.
of the ocean.
No.
So that's it. It's when there's a climate effect, it's absolutely immediate, no filter, and it has. I'll just give you an example. My grandfather, when he started his career, he used to call his pickers for 15th of October. 15th of October was the right
Yeah.
moment. The leaves were pretty much gone, so it was easy to harvest because you didn't have leaves, so you could cut very quickly.
Yeah.
And they were picking on 15th of October. That was a regular starting date. This year we started 18th of September, and it's considered decently late.
Wow. Wow. Let's talk about the other wine at the table, Gewürztraminer, and this is a 2014. So obviously now we're seeing some age.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about this wine and
So-
Gewürz.
Most important, this is a vendange tardif. So this is absolutely not your regular Gewürz.
Okay.
That is the icing on the cherry on the sprinkles. So this is really a unique bottling that we produce maybe every 2 or 3 years. So
Okay.
it's absolutely not produced every year. In my family, we consider sweet wines to be the pinnacle of what we can produce.
Okay.
So this is more or less the pinnacle of what we can produce. So late harvest Gewürz from Grand Cru Sporen, from the best part of the Sporen, botrytis wine. This is a botrytis wine.
Yeah.
Knowing that today you could produce a vendange tardif not necessarily using botrytis, we believe that botrytis is needed for that style of wine.
Okay.
This is what brings lightness and freshness. Very often people confuse botrytis and think botrytis makes heavier wines. No, botrytis makes lighter wines.
Really? Okay.
Because it works by concentration.
Yes.
It's all about concentration. What we're doing, if you're trying to produce a top wine, if you're trying to produce one of the best wines possible, you're going to be at some point playing with concentration. You're going to be wanting concentration either through low crop,
Yep.
through old stalks and deep-rooted vines, and botrytis allows us that little extra help
Yeah.
of just 1 week of dehydration, and suddenly the grapes tend to become much drier, shriveled, and you concentrate. When we talk concentration, typically people think sweetness, but you also concentrate acidity and aromatics, and this is where it becomes most interesting.
Amazing. The colour is beautiful.
Yes.
The colour is
Very
gorgeous.
inviting.
Hopefully you can see. I'm just going to get up, guys, so you can actually try and see the colour in the glass. Just sit there. Beautiful colour in the glass.
These are not white wines, these are golden wines.
Golden wines. I love that because this is a beautiful aroma of honeysuckle and tropical fruits, but not overripe tropical fruits, perfectly ripe, beautiful aromas.
That is the magic of Gewürztraminer. It's the most aromatic grape variety in the world, so very often Botrytis tends to mute a little bit the grape character, it tends to dominate a bit the grape character. Gewürz is probably the one grape that can actually fight back and maintain that aromatic character.
And
it's fresh.
It's fresh. You said before, and I thought, oh, okay, there's going to be the balance of the sweetness and the acidity. That's what makes this wonderful.
That's what makes great sweet wines.
And I'm still talking, and the acidity's there. The acidity's carrying the wine.
The acidity carries on longer than the sweetness.
Absolutely.
The sweetness is gone.
Yep.
Acidity is still there.
Yes. And it makes you want to reach for another glass.
You would empty a bottle. The two of us are probably going to empty the bottle by the time you're not watching anymore. It's going to be a long conversation.
It's going to be a long conversation off air, guys. Obviously, some people struggle with Gewürztraminer. I think it's a wonderful grape varietal.
I would say it's a binary grape. I think there's some element that has to do probably the same thing as cilantro. A gene somewhere in the population where people absolutely hate Gewürztraminer, and the other half of the population. But if you love Gewürz, you love
absolutely.
Gewürz.
And I'd actually probably give this wine to people that say they dislike Gewürztraminer, because I think this would change their mind. This is a style of Gewürz that perfect food wine as well.
Absolutely. If you're having cheese and you're not having this, you're doing it wrong. You're allowed port, a little bit of port.
Okay.
Port is okay. But yes, this is a fantastic cheese wine. This is a fantastic wine as soon as you're playing with deep, bold flavors. A Vendange Tardy would actually do very well. One of my secret tricks with this wine, it's a roasted chicken.
Oh.
Roasted chicken and Gewürz VT. I can't explain how.
Can we get a chicken, please?
We get two.
I think that would be amazing. That's really got
roasted veggies, the chicken fat and
these wines are available in the UK. Obviously.
Yes,
so fantastic, guys! If you can go and get them, I would recommend this. And actually, this Sunday, if you can pick up the Gewürz, I'd have that with a roast chicken.
It will rock your world. These are really wines that are, once again, they're not. This you'll find everywhere.
Yeah.
This is a much more niche production.
I'll find out the stockists for these guys and I'll put them in the page. I'm going to get back to the interview now because we were just enjoying the wines. Can I talk to you about the future?
Yes.
For Alsace, because obviously it's a region that some people know, and if you know it, you love it.
Yes, absolutely.
But we want more people drinking Alsace. This is why I wanted to talk to the producers from the region, because it's a region I love. I love the white wines. I'm starting to like the Pinots as well. Yep. We've got some incredible Pinot Noirs.
Very good reasons.
What is the future for this region that has a lot of history? But
there's a joke in the wine industry that Riesling's the next big thing, and it's been the next big thing for the past 40 years. So obviously we'd love for that to happen. No, more seriously, I would say that the Alsace today is very closely linked to climate change. You cannot talk about Alsace and not talk about climate change for the main reason that we're a northern region. Yeah. We're a region where ripe grapes was the number one criteria to making a good wine, and it did not happen every year.
No.
Now it's the case.
Yes.
Consistency is key when it comes to building the reputation of a region, and we're getting that today. Yeah. So I would say the future is quite bright. We're able to produce reds, so Pinot Noirs are becoming increasingly interesting. And especially sought after. We're actually unable to keep our Pinots at the winery because it's absolutely flying.
I've heard that actually the demand for Alsace Pinot is
huge. Very small production for us. You have to imagine that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when those vineyards should have been planted, Pinot Noir was still a challenging grape to grow.
Yes.
So this is no longer the case, but it's going to take a while to adapt the production.
Totally.
And if you increase production, you increase with young vines, which means that you need to manage through that quality, that lower quality of producing from young vines. So it's not an easy equation at the moment, but definitely the production of reds is increasing. And yes, as I said, consistency. I would say the style of Alsace wines 15 or 20 years ago were really more for people like us, you know, that loved high acid, that were, you know, they were very niche wines.
Yes.
They were very aromatic when it comes to Gewürztraminer, very high acid when it came to Riesling. Climate change has made the style of the wines a little more mainstream as well. A Riesling like this, like the 22, that would have been the ripest vintage of the decade. That would have been the top wine of the decade. That is just a consistent quality that we're getting now. So it's a much more approachable style of wine that people really now need to rediscover.
Totally, and I totally agree with that. I've got a couple more questions for you. Talking about obviously why people should drink Alsatian wines, why people should visit the region too, because I think that also gives people an understanding of a wine, a region. Absolutely. If you go there.
If you like Burgundy, you will love Alsace.
Yeah.
For every possible reason, whether it's the food, the scenery, the history. For the first, you know, being I every morning I am in one of the most visited villages in France, buildings from the 14, 15, 1600s. It's a fairy tale area, and Rivière is absolutely unique. If you're very often I have people that come to me and say, oh, we've been to Alsace. Oh, have you been to Rivière? I don't know, I don't remember. If you've been to Alsace, you have been to Rivière. It's a must. Okay. So if you've done the wine route, you will come in front of our door, and you should definitely push it. But this being said, yes, it's a region that absolutely should be visited for every possible reason, including the fact that all 3 airports of London have a direct flight to Basel, which is about 40 minutes.
Which I've heard. You can fly to Basel and you're there in 40 minutes.
Absolutely.
Incredible. Thank you so much for your time. One more question. You're a big foodie.
A bit.
And obviously there's some amazing restaurants also in Alsace. If I had to push you, favourite restaurant?
Oh, I'm gonna make many enemies.
Someone asked me in the comments because they knew you were coming on. Oh, you can give me a couple of restaurants then.
Okay. If I had absolutely had to go for let's say 3 days, I would. If you don't go to l'Auberge de Lille once in your lifetime, you're doing it wrong. If you're in Alsace, you have to go to the Chambard, especially the Windstube. You have to go to Brendel, especially since it's only opposite the street from us.
Yes.
And then you have to go to La Taverne Alsacienne. You have to go. I'm forgetting so many. I'm going to make so many people very.
Sorry, I put him on the spot there. Someone messaged me in the comments before I come on, ask him about his favourite restaurants. Sorry.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the guys at £67 now. I'm going to sit here a bit longer and try and drink through these wines and talk more with Jean-Frédéric. Thank you so much, buddy, and I'll see you soon.
Great.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers. Awesome, man.